And we're live. Landscape goes on mute.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Big Beaver. I will be filling in for Joshua today to give you all the State of the Nuniverse address. Unfortunately, he couldn't be with us, so I'm gonna see what I can do here, and we'll have some time for some questions and all that good stuff. So here is our here's our basic agenda. We're gonna review what we've done over the last year, do a little bit of an update on the Horror Wasp, check in with the level editor, and of course we have some new stuff. And we're going to talk about Emork's legacy, and then sort of look at the direction of where we're planning on heading over the next year or so. All right, the year in review. It's been 10 months since the last con. We've put in a number of new features, big and small. Worked on some different projects that have some have ended up well, some we've kind of backed off on. We'll talk about all that. Let's start with things that we've added. The Wandering Tribes games have gone in. Those seem to be pretty popular so far. I know that it is something that had been requested for quite some time, so we're happy to get that in. The Lorian Temporal Lance, Darth Ball's ship from his Emperor game, went in. Interesting functionality on that one, being able to travel through time and space. We're starting to see some of those roll out, and it'll be interesting to see how they're used. And about that same time, of course, Emork became the Emperor for the second time. This time with the yes, congratulations, Emork. So this time it was with the Crystalline Confederation, who, as you can see in the next bullet point there, is becoming quite dominant in high-level games. And that's something we may be looking at a little bit down the road, how to balance that out a little more, whether it's through diplomacy restrictions or additional features. Anyway, something to keep in mind. The Horror Wasp Alpha 2 update came out. That had some pretty radical changes in it. We added the setting the auto percentages for your workers. We moved some of the larger ships into the ship limit, and we're continuing to try and balance that out some. The Horror Wasp are obviously a feature that the community feel pretty strongly about in a couple of different directions. So we're trying to bring that in some. Let's see. Oh yeah, wormholes were added. It's a nice little feature. It's starting to show up in some more games. More fun than anything else, I think. Just to be able to find those and pop up unexpected. Should add some new twists to games as well. The level editor, we're going to be talking about that a little bit more coming up, but the first edition of that is out, and that's going to be something we're looking at more coming up here. And community mentoring, that was a big plus for me. If you don't know what community mentoring is, you can go on your profile page on the edit profile, and there's a little box you can click on to sign up for community mentoring. And basically, it'll just inform you when a new mentoring game is starting. And you can show interest in the game, and that way be copied on all of the discussions. And essentially, you can help the new players learn by answering questions without having to fully commit to playing as a mentor yourself. You can also step into the game and view the players' turns to offer offer advice and look at their situations and see what's going on. And it's really been quite helpful to me to have that, because before I was answering all of their questions personally. So so having that has really freed up a lot of my time. And I do get copied on all of the answers you all give, by the way, and they're fantastic. So thank you all again for that. Any questions before I move on? All right. All right, let's start with the Whore Wasp. So they're more balanced after Alpha 2, but they're not there yet. We know this. We're pretty aware that they are still too strong in early stages. We've heard it described as if you start next to the Whore Wasp, you basically die. It's your job to hold them back so the person behind you can maybe defeat them. And in some cases, that's been pretty accurate. They are doing better in late game, which is something we wanted to look at. But the balance is still not there yet. So we're making a couple more changes. We're increasing the cost for the broods and jackers. Their cost in clans are going up by factor of 3, and the mineral cost are going up as well. It depends on the mineral, but in a range of up to 300% as well. So, and we're giving them a theme song to welcome their official welcome them to their official beta presentation. The level editor, here you can see a nicely symmetrical design that someone has created for us. I forget who put together this exact level, but it's a pretty interesting one. The first edition is out. It's pretty functional. Well, it's fairly powerful. It's still a little clunky. So that's something we're going to be looking at. There are already 20 scenarios out there that you can go out and try. We're going to be looking more at this. We think single player can be an important part of the planet's new experience, especially as we see players struggling to keep up with constant schedules. It's a more casual form of play, and I think it can also be helpful to new players to help them learn without getting stomped on in multiplayer games, and they can play turns a lot faster as well. Looking into the future for this, we're going to start to elevate this in the interface a little more. Right now, the playing of the single player levels it's fairly hidden down in the menus. We're going to promote that more. We're going to allow people to start fully publishing their levels, which will lock them from changes. So players can play a consistent set. We're going to add on storylines, incorporate that with the map, save results like we do for the current single player levels. So you can get people advancing through a scenario level, I guess, game by game, and tell your story that way. We're going to support this with a bunch of improvements to the editor, some more event options. We're going to talk about some of that a little more here. Any questions on Whore Wasp or level editor before we move on?
When do we get multiplayer level editor?
Any other questions about about the single player?
When will be the Whore Wasp update be?
It's going to be all this, the Whore Wasp stuff and the new stuff I'm going to announce pretty soon. Will be coming in. A lot of it I'm going to release after this presentation here. When Joshua gave the presentation, I could kind of sneak the code in while he was while he was giving it. But here I'm going to wait until I'm done so I can make sure everything goes okay and we don't have any serious issues.
Will it influence existing games?
Yes.
I have okay.
All right. So let's see. So here's some new stuff. To answer your previous question, player-created scenarios will be available as multiplayer games.
Yes.
Right now, the it's a pretty simplistic method.
Very nice.
It's either all or nothing. You either have all players or all computers for the single-player mode. We're going to add some more options there down the road, but this should let people get started with that. We also want to add some more randomization for the planets, because right now, once you make a level, the planets are kind of fixed in what they have. So people who know the level will know what the planets have. But you can still create some pretty interesting multiplayer scenarios. Things like you can make a planet that if you hold it will give you bonus resources, that kind of thing. You can add strategic points and do a lot of interesting stuff. Some capture the flag type settings and that you can put together with the different events there. So that will be showing up shortly. You'll see when you go to the list of user created levels where there's a play button now, you will also see a host button, and that should allow you to create the game. These are only going to be private games, probably for a pretty good while, because we have no way of validating that they're anywhere near balanced or meet any requirements for public achievements. So they're going to be private games, but it should still be something that you all can enjoy playing around with. So next thing we have here, the Birdmen. We are going to move the Cloak and Intercept mission into the standard games. We've been kicking this idea around for a while, and it's a mission that really suits the Birdmen. It enhances their cloaking abilities, which is kind of their hallmark trait. So we think it'll be a good addition. Help give the Birdmen a little boost. As far as we can tell, most of the bugs have been worked out with it.
Just fuck all support chips.
Lovely.
I'm just kidding.
I have to take a vote. Same question
So-
on existing games?
What's that?
On existing games? Cloak and Intercept?
No, this will not affect existing games. This will start showing up in games created after we roll the code, so probably over the next day or so. Any games already created will not be affected by this. You can check the settings list, and you'll see a Cloak and Intercept item in there for standard games, and if it's set to true, then that'll be active there. And we will be issuing refunds. I know this comes up every time we move something into standard. We'll be issuing campaign resource refunds for those that have already purchased it, so they can spend those points on something else. Any other questions on that?
Yoo-hoo!
What about the poor robots? You're not getting anything.
It's true, and it is it is something we have talked about. The robots do need a little love. We've talked about it. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that in the future. They're a race that we're looking at to see what more we can introduce. I think we feel like their campaign advantages don't have as much flair as some of the others do. So Okay. A minor fix. I just want to go ahead and just get it out there. The Minesweep preview in the client has been just a little bit off for a pretty good long time now. You notice it most. I think it's pretty well known among the experienced players, but you notice it when you're sweeping webs that you can actually sweep from a little bit outside the field, when classically you had to be inside to sweep. And we've been thinking about this for a while, trying to decide whether to revert more to classic and make you be inside the field. But I think, given the somewhat the dominance of the crystal players, we decided that we were going to change the client to match what the host was doing. So you will still be able to sweep web mines from outside the field, generally within a light year of the edge. And now the client should accurately reflect that. So it's a minor change, but it's something that we see come up in the feed every, I don't know, 3 months or so, and people spit out various formulas and show different techniques, and so this should hopefully lay that to rest. Any questions on that? Yeah, I think pretty straightforward. Sure. Another change. This should be more helpful, I think, for the beginning players, but probably also some to the experience as well. I know I refer to the documentation actually quite a bit. So we've added that to the in-game assistant, so you don't have to exit the game to find that. You don't have to keep a separate tab open. The contextual help links that were in the client now link into that documentation. The documentation team has done a great job of putting together just tons of pages and information out there, and so we wanted to get it more accessible. I know, looking over what the thing people ask in the mentoring games in particular, it seems like they're not even all that aware that the documentation exists out there in a separate part of the site. So hopefully this will help get them in there and looking over stuff, figuring out a little easier. So it's a pretty big change to put that in code wise, but I think it'll be worth it for the newer players.
Is there any chance of adding the host deadline in that?
What's that?
Is there any chance of adding the deadline for the host in the in-game assistant?
Yeah, we could probably do that.
Well, thank you.
I have one question on the Minesweep preview, but then from the mine layers perspective, like you have the mine decay, would it be possible
Yes.
the mine decay in a different color than if you scoop, so that you know that you exactly trap the enemy, instead of that you just can still sweep? You want to be 1 or 2 like
If I'm following what you're saying, I think that's already in there as an option. So you're saying when you lay a minefield, or when you scoop a minefield, you want to know where the boundary is
but you
after
see
you scoop?
Yeah, the decay is included in the scoop, or they are the same color. If there's decay of the field, like a few percent.
You should see the field before the decay. So you can, because the Minesweep begins before the decay.
Yeah.
When you scoop,
Okay, yeah. I believe that's a setting in there.
okay.
I forget what it's called. If you look under settings, there should be something about scoop decay. I think I got one
Okay.
open.
Yes, there's a yellow circle for the scoop, and then there's a yellow circle for the scoop one.
Yeah, it'll draw a yellow circle
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
I have
that
also-
is
And I have wrong
after scoop but before decay.
Okay, never mind. Thanks.
Oh, sure. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. So we have a couple more new things. Are there any other questions before we move on?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you the right-handed dominant coalition, or are you a left-handed person? Very important here, politically.
I'm right-handed.
Oh no! You're a very nice person. I'm sure.
Okay, another big announcement we have here that comes up time and time again, and it seems to be a very heated argument, a very contentious topic, is the combat random number generator. And in particular, the fact that it can get into cycles and keep fighters from launching or beams from firing. That's where we usually see the complaints. Although it shows up in a lot of other fights as well, just not as evident. So we're going to go ahead and offer an alternative. I've called it the expanded combat RNG to not imply that it is better or worse than the other. It's just different. It'll be available optionally. We're going to start it out only in custom games. That's a pretty typical way of releasing these sort of larger changes and getting some testing on them. We're a fairly small team, so we can't test all possible combinations and things like this. So we like to release them slowly and get them out in the community some. A little technical talk on it. It's based on the Mersenne twister algorithm, and we're still using the classic planets random number tables. What we're doing differently is, instead of cycling through those tables sequentially, which is where you get the issues with the cycles that cause the fighters not to launch and the beams not to fire, we're using an outside random number generator to pick the numbers out of those tables. And what this does is it stops the cycles, but since we're picking from that same pool of numbers, it keeps a lot of the other aspects of the combat the same. In particular, the left side advantage. It is possible to remove that, and it may show up as an option down the road, but it's a pretty key piece strategically. Certain races would definitely feel impact more from removing the left side advantage. So we wanted to keep that in, even though it is quirky and possibly unattended originally, but it's become such an ingrained part of the game that for now we want to keep that in. And so the results, I'm going to show a little bit here. They do deviate some from the classic numbers, but looking at them, they're pretty fair. Let's see. So this, if you can see, I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on here. This is available for those who are really number inclined. Can go and look this up. It'll be in the library. It'll be linked from the slides. But what I did is I ran with a few different random number generators. I ran every ship versus itself to see what kind of results we would get. The first column here is classic. The second column you can ignore. That was another attempt. we didn't really like the way those results were coming out, so we didn't go with that. And this third column, it shows the results of the expanded RNG. And if you look, beam only and torp only fights are generally about 50-50, which is what you would expect, what you would want to see. Let's see again. I think way down here are the big carriers. You can see the preservation of the left side advantage. Right side wins about 1/3 of the time. Left side wins about 2/3 of the time. That's pretty close to where it was at before. The numbers don't exactly line up. One thing about the classic combat is that there's only 118 possibilities for a combat. So a lot of times that's just not a large enough sample size to get as even of fights as you would expect. So this evens things out some. And we're gonna try it and see how it goes.
Question.
Yes.
Did you do simulations with ships against max bases?
I ran very few planet fights.
Okay.
Good question.
So, but yes.
Essentially, very big balance changes could come from.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I'm going to show you some tools here in a minute that hopefully people can look at as well and see how it looks to them. See what they think of the results. So let's see. Okay, yeah, that's next. So I'll go ahead and show you what we got there. You can see here we've added a chunk of, here's the documentation and the assistant as well. We've added a chunk of options down here at the bottom of the simulator. Obviously important is whether you want the classic or the expanded
Sorry,
option.
could you zoom in a bit? We can't actually read the text on the screen.
Excuse
Increase
me?
font size or something. Can you
Control
increase
0,
font size?
Control plus.
Control plus.
Okay, let me.
Yeah, it gets better,
Okay.
but still.
Actually, I can go in a little more here. How's that?
Yep. Okay, now it makes
I think-
sense.
I think that's about as big as we're going to get.
No, this is good.
Okay, so yeah, you have your option for which generator you want to use, classic or expanded. Who knows? Maybe there will be other options down the road, but the bonus mass you will mainly want to leave as random unless you want to test something specific. You want to see if
Very good.
you really want to get the right or left side for a particular reason. It's a useful feature. It was useful in drawing up those charts to look at the results. So I went ahead and threw it in the simulator as well. A feature that should be useful, this fast compute, just goes ahead. For classic, it will just run all the combinations, give you the results. I think that's something that's been a little bit lacking for some time here. It should help instead of running sim after sim and trying to just ballpark it, looking at those. So on classic, it'll just run all the possibilities. If it's a carrier battle, it'll run, well, I don't want to show it. It'll run both with bonus mass on all possibilities and with bonus mass off, and it will weight them appropriately. So it'll give you pretty accurate percentages of what will happen. If you click it on to expanded, because it has a much larger set of seeds, of random seeds that it uses, it'll just run. And it will I think there's, I believe, 2 to the 32 possibilities for seeds. Somewhere in that range. It's in the billions. So, but as it runs, it'll give you a pretty accurate representation of how things will go. So that should help if you want to see how the different options compare. It's pretty easy. You can switch back and forth between the two with the same fight. We also threw in just a couple of nice to have options. You can pull ships from your current game in just without having to enter all the data. It's just a convenience function and a swap sides function. So
Very good addition. Yeah.
And also is enemy ships. So the
This is an
enemy ships-
interesting fight.
So, can you pick enemy ships also?
what was the question?
Can you pick enemy ships?
You can. And if you have fought it before, or if an ally has fought it, so you know what the weapons on it are, then it will tell you. It will go ahead and load those in. Or if you have information on its damage or whatever, if it's something you just fought, it will load that in for you. And if not, it will assume the highest weapons possible. Same as it does when you pull a ship down here. Bad example, but
The red shield generator.
what was that?
Are there options to include the red wind and the shield generator effects?
There are not. Those are exceptions. Eventually, we will want to have a multi-ship simulator option. It's a pretty big project, and I think a lot of those things, the gunboats are another issue that the simulator doesn't support. The shield generator and the red wind as well.
Yeah, they are already included.
Fast beams is an option.
That means it's
It's already an option. For the shield generator, you could just allow 150% shields.
It's not exactly. Well,
But if you can listen,
The
you
bonus
already get
Fast beams comes there when you select fastest. So
Yeah,
yeah,
But if you're already over 320 and you carry it,
When do we get to play with this?
This should be released pretty soon after the presentation's over. I'm gonna dump a bunch of code out, both host side and client code, so that'll be available, and you can start playing with it. I'm interested to see what kind of results people see. I've watched a good number of fights, and just looking at them visually, they look pretty good. It's possible this might get some really bizarre streaks. That's when you bring in a truer random number generator. That's something we have to take into account, much like you can hit, 4 mines in 10 light years and then fly 81 and not hit a single mine. We may see those sorts of effects here as well. I believe that it pulls enough, that events are small enough and frequent enough that you won't see anything truly weird, but it is a possibility. So that's something we're going to be looking out for. So that is that, and you'll start to see that. Well, you can start putting that into private games if you want to try it out. I don't think overall you'll really notice that much of a difference. I think if we didn't tell you we were doing this and just did it, it'd probably take people a long time to figure it out that we had switched it. But just to be clear, we haven't switched it. This is just another option being allowed. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, let's get back to the presentation here. So I think we've covered that. Okay. Here's our next big addition. Emork's Legacy for his victory in the Aquarius War. Seeing as it was his second round as Emperor and the third victory for the crystal, we gave him the option of not making yet another ship for the crystals, and he chose to go a different route. And we have added these indestructible legacy artifacts. They're available to anyone. They'll just be a part of games. There are 5 of them: Emork's Bones, Emork's Flesh, Emork's Blood, Emork's Spirit, and Emork's Mind. And here's a little screenshot when you have one, where it will show up. It'll be there on the bottom of your ship or planet screen. All right, so some of the details here. These artifacts will start buried on 5 unknown planets at the beginning of the game. You can discover them by mining for minerals. They can be
faster the better.
Yeah, ISO-T might have the advantage here.
Yeah.
So they can be loaded on ships, move between ships and planets. They won't show up on your cargo. They'll show up in that separate area, and they are moved by ship mission. So that's something you have to take into account, is that transferring these requires you not to do something else with your ship. So on a planet, any of the artifacts it has a beneficial effect. They all have the same effect. So whether you have the blood or the bones, makes no difference. It will affect your planet the same. On board starships, they have unique effects. So having blood on your ship will be different than having bones. And if you have 2 artifacts on a ship, they will interact and create yet another effect. So there's a lot of interesting things out there that these can do. And to get more into that, we're not going to get more into that. This is kind of a treasure hunt, and the knowledge about the effects of these is lost. Rumors are that they are powerful, but also partly situational. It might take a long time until full knowledge about Emork's legacy is restored. So essentially, it's gonna take people to find these and play around with them before you know what they do. And
Question.
Yes.
Is Emork's account allowed to find these?
I've been thinking about that.
Whether or not these effects are identical every game, or are you going to randomize them?
They are identical.
They are identical. I believe kind of what we're envisioning is that as players find them and the effects are discovered, then they'll get moved into the documentation. Probably some of the effects will be put into the UI, so they'll become less mysterious as time goes on. But we thought it'd be kind of fun just to put them out there and let people try and hunt them down, see what they did.
What happens if a planet that has an artifact or a ship that carries an artifact gets destroyed?
Find out.
Oh yeah, or maybe the artifact. Or maybe it's impossible.
You will get the message.
Yeah, you'll get messages about all sorts of things that happen with artifacts. We're not going to go into a lot of the details about how they work, really, because we want it to be kind of mysterious.
Are they going to be included in standard games, or is
they'll be in a variety of games. You can turn them on in custom public games. There will be a setting for that, and they'll show up in some of our other system created games as well. Up in the settings section at the top, if they are there, it'll say something to the effect of eMorks Legacy. I think it's even highlighted in orange, so it should be pretty apparent. They'll start showing up as the next round of games are being created.
Can the privateers rob these artifacts?
No. No, you have to steal the ship it's on.
So yes.
Capture the ship, but not robbing.
And let me add that after the presentation, Whisperer will set up a documentation page where it's the first discoverer of an effect will be recorded forever.
Oh.
So
500 custom mini.
So let's make up some effects.
Okay, I have to start again.
Okay, so anything else on those?
Sounds very good
Very
and
nice.
fun.
That sounds fun.
Now I have to play campaign.
Yeah, I think it'll be a nice change from just adding another ship to a race that already has a couple Emperor ships to its name. So it's a good alternative. All right. So our future plans, these are kind of some of the larger projects we're looking at. Of course, we do a lot of smaller stuff in the cracks pretty much all the time. The 3D development we have put on hold. We've kind of come back to the web client. We made a lot of pretty cool things, but we don't have the resources to make a full client for that right now. So we're putting that on hold until mainly until we get some more graphic abilities, I think. But we are going to be looking at the level editor. Like I said, we do want to make the storylines both the user created, and we'd like to create our own sort of single player campaign for people to do. We'd like to make those more prominent on the site. I think it can do some good. I think it will give experienced players either something to do with their downtime to keep from joining another game they don't need to join, or when schedules get hectic, it's something you can play on and off without a 3 times a week schedule. So yeah, you'll see that starting to get more promoted and developed. We're going to be beefing up the AI a little bit so it can play a little better. We would like to make a campaign where the final nasty enemy is the Horwasp eventually. So we're going to need to get around to actually making a Horwasp AI. So we're going to be looking at that. That'll be a focus. We did our first pass, and I think people have done some pretty cool things with it. If you haven't checked out any of those levels, you should, because they're pretty fun. And we're gonna be doing another pass through the mobile development. They've been bringing in players, the Academy games have, and they have a pretty good following just of their own. So we're gonna look at that a little more as a way to increase our growth. The mobile client honestly has been a little bit neglected for some time. There's some known bugs that we want to get fixed with it, and offer some additional options. We're going to look into expanding the full games on the mobile client and how we can make that possible as well. So those are a couple of the larger projects we're going to be working on, in addition to just the usual incremental changes that we put out. And I think that is about all I have. But I would gladly take any questions you have. I may not be able to speak with full authority here, but I can give you my best guess as to where we're going or whatever you may have.
Question about the level editor.
Yes.
Is it possible to make a custom ship list? Custom hulls, beams, engines?
No, not at the moment. You can use the ships that are in the game. I mean, you can make a ship and outfit it any way you want. But are you asking if you can put more beams on a ship than you normally could?
Just change the specifications.
Yeah, right now that's not possible. But it is something we could look into in the future. Although, to some degree, I would want to keep that
This is one option.
fairly constant.
This is one option in the very good battle simulator of Stefan Reuter, and you can use that to simulate all kind of campaign ships. So maybe it's an easy way for you to allow users to simulate the effect of one or two shield generators and so on. In the battle simulator of Stefan Reuter, you can just choose own ship, and then you can specify mass and beams, and so just a hint, maybe it helps.
Oh, were you asking about the simulator or the level editor?
No, it's the simulator.
In the simulator, yeah, we could add those sorts of options.
Oh, sorry, confused.
In the simulator, we could add those sorts of options fairly easily.
Please find it.
That's a good answer. I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. So, are EMOG legacy artifacts going to show up in all kind of games or only in campaign games?
No, they'll be in some standard games as well. Not consistently. So they'll be in sometimes and sometimes not, which kind of suits their mysterious nature. But it'll be marked on the game page pretty clearly at the top. It's in orange text. It'll say if it's there or not.
Perfect.
Okay. I have a question about championship games.
Yes.
At the moment, you can express interest on the game, but you can't specify if you're interested only for one race, if you would qualify for more than one race. Is this intended this way? It's a little bit weird.
I think we will probably keep it as it is.
But then you don't know which race you get, and
that's right.
Oh, okay.
Birdman check.
I want the bird.
So right now it takes the highest ranking player for each race.
Yeah, but I heard from other players who are first place in one race and second place in another race, and they say, I want to play championship game, but only with this race and not with the other race. And it would be a pity if they apply, and then at the moment when the game starts, they know which race they get, and then they say, no, I don't want to play this race now for 1.5 years with full engagement and so on, and they drop or say, if you send your mail, I don't know if that's the best solution.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's something we could look into adding. I know. I mean, it's something that comes up so infrequently that I don't know that we'd want to add a lot of code for it. Maybe it's just something that we would handle manually.
Yeah, if that is possible, that would be perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, when will the next championship start?
I would expect to see it pretty soon. I think we are. When did the last one start? April? I'm not sure, but I think we're coming up on the time for that. So Probably fairly soon. You'll see it, and of course there will be announcements about it, and we'll start the signups.
All right.
For the question on the community mentoring, do you
Yes.
have any results whether that actually made any difference? I mean, it's good fun doing the mentoring, and I think it works quite well in its mechanics. But does it actually make any difference?
That actually is a good question. I haven't pulled any stats on that. I'll have to look and see what we have, and maybe put together a chart on that or something. My gut is that it has helped. It seems like there are players staying in the games a little bit longer, but I don't watch them all that closely, so I can't say definitively on that.
Could we fix the description as well? Because what it states that you have to kill the mentor is clearly wrong.
Not in person, you mean?
No, but it says in order to win, the midshipmen have to eradicate the mentor, and that's not correct.
Right. Yeah, we did make it so you can have a diplomatic win as well, and yeah, we should probably add that to the actually let me make a note of that while I'm sitting here thinking about it. We did actually make. Don't think it has gone live yet, but we made one very small change to the mentor games to make them a static fight or fail of one planet. That way, because it seems to come up quite frequently that the mentees capture all the planets and there's a few lingering mentor ships, a lot of times without fuel. And I think that's frustrating for them when they feel like they've done all they need to have to hunt down ship. I mean, it's a good lesson to learn how to hunt down and kill a fuelless ship, but it's kind of a weak way for a game to end. Yeah. So now in games, if they kill all the mentor planets, then it will trigger the fight or fail, and they will be victorious.
Okay. Very good.
Okay. Anything else?
You said something about the diplomacy settings. Maybe in future, you said it with the crystal thing, but is there going to be some possible limitations for diplomacy? You can set maybe max ally 2 or something like that.
Yeah, I think in the future we're gonna add some. It's not in there yet, but I think we're gonna add some settings to enable more lone wolf type of games with restricted diplomacy at the lower levels. So we would make it flexible, but it could be along the lines of, you can have only one full alliance. So that's it. You can't have any safe passage, any share intel. You find the person you want to work with, you commit, you make it public, like getting married, kind of. But yes, and we would have various options. We try and make things like that fairly flexible so they can cover different sorts of situations and give people the ability to set up the games that they want to play. Really, the custom games and the interest board has worked out really well. We see a lot of high quality, good, interesting games come out of that.
Can you maybe elaborate a bit on the decision to share the VCRs with your partners with which you don't have an alliance but have to share intel?
Oh yeah, so share intel partners can now see combats. Yeah, that kind of sprung up quickly, I know. I think one of the reasons behind that is kind of tied into the same basic reasoning as the diplomacy settings, offering different options. It's just kind of to weaken some of the massive alliances that you see being created. It offers a little more of a cost to doing so. It's not much, but it's a little more.
Hands up who got really like panicked when first time seeing those extra 5 VCRs.
Yeah, there was some panic there.
I just share Intel partner. It ruined my day. No, not really.
But speaking of share Intel, maybe wouldn't it be okay to also add when a planet takes planet ownership changes? I mean, this is something which at the moment isn't really covered. If I have share Intel with the partner and the partner is losing planets due to, for example, clan drops or something like that, then you are not notified of that.
And you do not know how many enemy clans are at the planet.
Yeah.
Even your Intel partner knows.
Yeah, that's in some situations we do see that happening, and that I believe that is a bug. I've tried to hunt that down for quite some time, and I have not not found the source of it. But we would like to get that fixed. But yeah, you should see when a partner loses a planet.
Question: how about glory devices?
Oh yeah,
that would be also quite interesting to know.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I think
Yes.
all the players would love to know if a glory device goes off somewhere, no matter whether or not.
What do you
No,
know?
the fascists does not want to know.
I'm assuming the question was just about allies.
All the cool guys want stuff.
So, I mean that's a possibility of something we could add. I think in general, we've just preferred to let that kind of be the fascist business and their victims' business. I don't think we would ever publicly announce glory device explosions. I guess it's possible it could be added as a shared information between share Intel partners or something. And I mean, in that regard, we could add a lot of shared messages. Something to look at.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
Hey, thanks very much for the update.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Seems like you all are having a good time there, and keep doing so.
Yeah.
All right.
Next time we will do as well. Joshua joined Europe once.
You should both join us next year.
Exactly.
Because the
Yeah.
Klingon is really fantastic.
Cheers.
Cheers, you all. Have a good rest of the con.
Okay. Thank you.
That's good.